Billy Bragg song a bit later. At the moment, what I want to talk about is how to tell you how to get more out of your newspapers, simply by knowing who it is that's trying to tell you something and what audience they think they're trying to get their message across to. There's basically three types of newspapers as far as audience and control's concerned. There's those that are run by the ruling class, for the ruling class, that is the ruling class talking to the ruling class. There's the middle class talking to the middle class, and of course there's the ruling class talking to the working class. First up, for example, the middle class talking to the middle class. We have in Sydney, we have the Sydney Morning Herald. Most cities have papers like this. In Melbourne it's the Age, in London perhaps it's the Guardian. What marks these papers is a kind of naivety about the way the system runs, or the way capitalism works. Sometimes they'll support civil liberties, for example, when it suits them. Other times they might run with the terrorist scare campaign or whatever. But generally it's the reporters. The reporters have the run of the show. It's middle class, talking about middle class interests. They're quite often concerned about, town planning and stuff like that. Anyway, so that's the middle class talking. The middle class. Secondly, we have in Australia, we have the national paper, The Australian. Another broadsheet. Around the world there's different papers, anything with financial in the name, such as Financial Review, which is another Fairfax paper in Australia, Financial Times in London perhaps. Now these are the ruling class talking to the ruling class, so they do have an understanding of what capitalism is and how it works, and as a result they're quite often quite frank in their reporting, unashamedly, for security, opposed to civil liberties, nakedly about profit, how to make the rich richer, and tied up with, in the guise of this is in the national interest, this is in the interest of all. There is, some propaganda, in that sense, but it's not as honey-coated as perhaps in the other papers. So that's the ruling class talking to the ruling class. Lastly, we have what's often known as the tabloids. They don't always come in that form, but this is papers like the Daily Telegraph in Sydney, perhaps the Sun in London, or the Sun Herald in Melbourne. These are the ruling class talking to the working class. Okay, now there also does seem to be an understanding in these papers about the way the system works, how capitalism works. But you can see it's in there because all the smoke and mirrors that are used to try and confuse the people actually reading the paper about the true nature of the system. As on a whole, they're basically a propaganda piece, quite right-wing, opposed to civil liberties, where they can get away with it, that sort of thing. Now, just to illustrate the point, the headline of this paper is about Prime Minister of Australia, John Howard, talking about his anti-union laws, which he calls work choices, saying, basically apologising for the angst that they've caused. Now, work choices are laws that have stripped the unions of their powers, given more powers to the bosses, taken money from the poor, given it to the rich, which the ruling class knows does not wash with this electorate. So they're trying to put the spin on it that the Prime Minister is sorry about these laws and wants to try and make amends. Now, there's nothing in the other papers about Prime Minister John Howard apologising for the work choices laws. It's just purely spin because they know this is a working class audience. Same people, the Murdochs, own the Australian, which is the ruling class aimed paper. Nothing about there about the work choices apology. It's about work choices doesn't go far enough. You know, the union should be stripped of all their power. Anyway, I did say so. Anyway, that's you want to get more out of your papers. Know who it is talking to who. Middle class talking to middle class. Ruling class talking to ruling class, or the ruling class talking to the working class. One other point about these papers, which I found interesting. Tuesday, September 11, 2007. And none of them mention the September 11 attacks, which I found odd because a year or two ago they were ringing it for all it was worth, and now hardly anything. Anyway, said I'd play the Billy Bragg song. It says here, 20 years on, the lyrics are as relevant as they ever were. Chords lifted straight out of the Back to Basics songbook. So sue me, Billy, I'm not getting any money out of this. It says here, sharp shock. This is not what you should understand. That those who own the papers also own this land, and there's only believe in God. Nation Street papers in the war circulation of sounds newspapers. Freedom of the press, the privileges of women, states of just remember, there's two sides to every story. Cheers, I'll catch you later.